Meow, I'm Tonya Todd, creator of 52 Love. 52 Love began as a blog series, offering one love lesson per week for an entire year of intimacy tips to try with your partner. From there, I hosted the 52 Love podcast, where existing couples came on the show, tried the tips, and shared their experience with it. The book version came out last year, and on February 14th, we have something new to add to the series. 52 Love, A Year of Romance. In this short story collection, 12 authors are joining me in taking characters from our existing works and using one of the 52 Love tips as a story prompt. And to celebrate the release of Volume 1, we are recording author-to-author interviews so that you can hear a little bit about their story process, how they became involved, and how their characters connect to a greater literary universe. We hope you enjoy this behind-the-scenes glimpse. Check out 52 Love, A Year of Romance on February 14th.
Hi, I'm Gregory Kompes, and I'm speaking with
R.L. Merrill.
Wonderful, and we are in an upcoming to be released soon book that was an anthology connected to 52 Love and Tonya Todd. So my first question to you, Ro, how do you know Tonya?
So I met Tonya virtually through a convention that has kind of changed names a little bit. It's the RSJ, Diverse Writers and Readers International. And I went for the first time the summer of 2020, which was perfect because we were all kind of stuck in our houses. And as a writer who had a very robust community here in the Bay Area, because that's where I live, I was missing my people, and so the RSJ folks had decided to turn their convention virtual, and it was like 3 days of great workshops. And somehow in there, Tonya and I connected and became social media friends, and I learned more about her acting and her love of vampires, and it was like, she's my people.
That's great. So you actually got to connect with your people while you were at this event.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah, yeah.
Because there's my writing people, but then there's my people who also write. And she was one of those people that also writes.
Right. Yeah. That's
How
very
about you?
so. At the time I was living in Vegas. I currently live in Delaware. And since then, I've also lived in Savannah. But at the time, I was about a decade ago now. Gosh, I think it's been about 10 years. I know we shouldn't talk ages, right? But about 10 years ago, I was the president of the Henderson Writers Group at the time, and
Oh,
Tonya was just starting out on her writing journey, and she sat next to me at a critique meeting, and I was there. I have it here. I was there with my green pen. I don't use red. I always use green to write comments. And she was so timid and shy and kind of freaked out. She's gonna hate me telling the story. And it really bothered her because there I was with my green pen making comments on her copy, while she's trying to read out loud to the group. It's what you do, right, in a critique group. And since then, right, we all know Tonya's become this powerhouse actress, and she's out in the world, and she's on every podcast known to man and woman, and right. So she's just amazing, and she's building this great career. And so I was there, kind of not the beginning, but at a very early stage. I've been in critique groups with her, one-on-one, private groups, small groups. We've become very good friends over the years. Although, as we pointed out earlier, I've never met her kids or anything. So, but yeah, so that was how I met her. And then we've just been each other's fans and supporters for a long time now, through critique groups, and writing and career and friendship and all that good stuff. So really, really good. Now we didn't even talk about this yet. We didn't start. So your story in this book is man on man romance,
yes.
right? A jock and a choreographer, right?
Yes, a retired NFL quarterback who was one of the first to come out in the league. And he met a college cheerleader when he went back for his homecoming years after he graduated, and they form this friendship that lasts for many, many years before they're kind of in the same place at the same time. And so Joe was a cheerleader and then went on to be a part of a sort of the So You Think You Can Dance or a Dancing with the Stars kind of, and his career blew up and he did all kinds of wonderful things, which kept him from being in one place where he could actually settle down. So the book that they are in is this one, Everything's Better with You. And yeah, it's a seasoned age gap romance with a lot of hurt comfort because they're both dealing with the after effects of what having a football career and a dance career will do to your bodies. And so yeah, it was my warm fuzzy writing project I did during the pandemic because I needed something that was just happy and full of joy and yeah.
Yeah. So do you write a lot of man on man romance? Is that?
I write all kinds, all pairings or thruples, what have you. I would say the majority of my books are queer, even if it's male female. I started off writing male female, but very quickly realized that I wasn't writing cis het romance either.
Yeah.
So because that's not who I am and that's not who the people around me are. So so I've written a lot of a variety, but I do write a lot of male projects. Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah. How about you? So tell us about your story. I read your story this afternoon and my heart is still a little shaky.
Yeah.
How
Thank you.
did
Yeah.
that story come about?
So that's from the book. It's not actually from the book. It's characters from the book Tamburlaine. And you're so good. You held up your book cover. I did not do that. I don't have a copy here even to reach for one. But it's from my Broadway series. Tamburlaine is the third book in the series, and the it's the whole story is written from Chris Marlowe's point of view, not the poet, my drag queen, whose name is Chris Marlowe, and and the character that this piece's voice is in was amazing to write for me because Liz never got her point of view on the page, right? Because everything is in Chris's point of view in the novel. So this is a scene not actually in the book, and a scene that Chris never knew happened. But I don't want to give away too much because there's right toward the end of the book and there's a bit of a spoiler. So you have to read the book to find out what happened, and then you'll see where this scene fits in, which is really amazing. And I'm working on book 6 for that series, and the CD that Liz buys is in that book. And it's talked about in that scene, so it comes back that deep relationship. So yeah, this was fun to write because we don't always, sometimes if you don't have a point of view character in a story, if they're, we don't know them very well. We write about them, but we don't know them. And this time I got to be right in Liz's head, which was really fun and amazing to write. So yeah,
and I could immediately see why Tonya paired us because there's the performance aspect because my character Joe also performed on Broadway, and there's the music piece also because in addition to writing queer books, the majority of my books have to do with music in some way. And the way my mind works immediately when I was reading the names of the artists, I'm like, ooh, I'm gonna have to look those up afterwards.
Right. I loved your story too. I love the fact you used the tango as that frame, and there was a lovely moment. I mean, it's so romantic, right? And the tango should be really romantic, and it shows the relationship. But there's a moment where it's like, don't lift your toe, right? And it was so visual. And anyone who knows anything about the tango, right, or has watched any of those dancing shows, because they all go through a tango sequence.
Yeah.
It's in the series. It was really wonderful. So it was so visual and so sensual. You did such a great job with that. Yeah, my books. I have a lot of music in my books too. The next book that's coming out in the Broadway series is Busker, and it's about a busker, a guitar player, who he travels around a lot, but the book takes place in New York City. So, and he meets some of the characters from the Broadway series, which is, yeah, full of songs, and we have to be very careful, right? You can't quote any lyrics and stuff, but it's full of music and wonderful stuff. Very, very cool.
That's awesome.
So what do
Yeah,
you? Oh, sorry.
my story in the collection is basically like an after. It takes place after the book. So it's a spoiler, but not, because my book is a romance, and so the you know, you go into it with the understanding that they're going to be together at the end. But maybe this isn't the way you anticipated they would be together. And the interesting thing about it is, shortly after I wrote this story, Mark Ballast from Dancing with the Stars came across because I get all kinds of dancers and performers on my Facebook feed, right?
Oh, okay,
And
good.
he posted this like 20-minute long video collection of him and Derek Huff actually performed a male tango on the show this last season. And through this whole like series of them meeting up while they were in the middle of traveling and choreographing it in hotel rooms, and they kind of talked about the origination of the tango, which was that a lot of times men did dance together, because in Argentina there were not as many women, and it was kind of a way for them to flaunt their stuff and hopefully attract one of the women. So it was more of a combative rather than a romantic, which I kind of found that interesting, because you can see that in the dance. It's very, you know,
Right.
no matter who's doing it, there's definitely that. But
Right. There's that push me, pull me going on the whole time, right?
yeah, it's a beautiful performance they did. It's very athletic and just,
Now I have to go look for it. Yeah.
yeah, it's really good.
So cool. Yeah, music and dance. It's also sensual, and this book is all themed with love ideas too. So it's really fun to to see how all these different authors come at their character. Well, maybe not the authors, but their characters come at love, you know, and approach it. And, you know, all
Right.
of.
Now, let me ask you then, what was your love lesson that your characters used? Because that's
So
sort of where we were riffing off of.
right. So my love lesson was book. What the tip was share a book of some kind. So
Oh,
in my story, right, Liz is out looking for a gift for Chris to do something nice, and he tries to find a biography of Rusty Warren, who is adored by Chris. That Chris is a female impersonator, and well, drag queen really, and Chris would refer to himself as a drag queen, and he's been impersonating Rusty Warren, who was a comedian from the '60s and '70s, literally for decades, 40 years or so. And so Liz Elmore first looks for maybe a biography of Rusty Warren, but there isn't one. They can't find one. Then he thinks about a poetry book, and then he ends up choosing a piece of music. But in the end, because he hears something, and Chris is a performer and loves music. So, but the idea of sharing books and reading poetry in bed, and right, all of those things that can both be comforting, right? We love hearing stories. It's romantic to find stories, but also other things, right? It's good for the mind and good for the soul, and all of those kind of things come from books. And I'm a big reader. I mean, I read 60, 70 books a year, plus I teach in an MFA program, so I currently have 8 student novels that I need to get through in the next couple of weeks. So yeah, it's a lot. So I'm a reader, and so that was why I was drawn to that tip. It really is sort of, and then I help other people write books. That's what I mean. I'm a writing coach, right? So it's one of the things I do as well. So books are a big part of my life. So how about you? What was your tip, and why did you end up with it?
So I believe that the lesson was about a dance. They have a dance together. But it's been a while since I wrote it, so I can't remember exactly. I'm assuming that that's where it came from.
Yeah, no, that's the tip. That's so what we're talking about here is 52 Love, the original source material, right?
Right.
Tonya wrote a book called 52 Love, which started out as, I believe, as a blog first,
Yeah,
and then she did
and the podcast. And
and then she
so
did a podcast.
my
Yeah.
husband and I actually were in the podcast together. We did a our lesson that we did was actually to take a picnic.
Uh-huh.
And that was, and again, it was during the pandemic. We were stuck in the house with our kids who were, old teenagers at that point. And so we went to a park nearby and had and it was beautiful. And um so that's how we first connected on this project. And then she said, would you like to write a story? And I'm pretty sure that I chose that they share a dance. And so that's, yeah, and it was like, oh well, I have to have it be with Joe and Leslie because this is the perfect couple.
Yeah. It was really, yeah, it's really amazing. And the book is great. 52 Love, that this is based on, is actually, in the podcasts are still available. You can find them all over the internet. It's really cool, like a really, really cool.
Yeah.
And I love that all these stories now are coming out of it. And there's going to be 4 volumes, I believe, of stories that come out of it. Really cool. So I'm excited to be in the first one.
Yeah.
For Tonya, right? So I think we've been through all our questions. So, which is
Um,
really good.
yeah. So, yeah. Well, it just asked if you adapted an existing story, but you said this is part of your series.
Yeah. Okay, they were characters from my series. And
Mhm.
yours, so do you have a series of romances that are like NFL romances, or?
No, actually, this is a standalone at this point. I would like to eventually continue it, um, but I haven't gotten back around to that because
Yeah.
I am one of those authors that does not follow the you should do this, you should do this. So instead of picking a lane and staying in that, I tend to write a lot of things. I write horror, I write contemporary romance, I write paranormal romance, I write, both queer and male female. So I have several different series, and I like to jump around. And I'm always joining something new. I like different, shared world projects. In fact, I've been on Messenger with a group that we're doing a small town romance series together. And we're all kind of creating what the town looks like and where everyone's properties are. And, so I tend to write, I love a challenge. I was actually a teacher also, but I taught high school, mostly independent study, and I was a school counselor. So, did not start out as a writer, and I just kind of accidentally became one. So, but the challenge of it is always what draws me to a project. And that was again another reason why this project with Tonya was really, it was something like, give me a prompt, give me a scenario, and I get very excited because I want to figure out how to make it work. So it was great. It was
Yeah, that's really, really cool. I love writing the prompts too, and that's a big part. Actually, I have a novel coming out in September called Shards, through Flexible Press, and the whole book came out of prompts, which is like just so cool. It was not the original intention. I was just teaching workshops and writing with my students, and all of a sudden I met some characters on the page, and Alistair and Getty like turned into a novel. So which is just so amazing to me, right? When you build something in this collective kind of space. Very,
Yeah.
very cool. But the thing you're talking about, building a world with a whole bunch of romances set with, that's a hot thing right now. To have a group of authors come together and everybody
Mhm.
contributes a book to the series. So it isn't one voice all the way through, right? Because you have this group of authors contributing, right?
Yes, but a lot of them we're doing. I've done a lot of anthologies, but I've also done a few of these shared worlds now where it's we all are creating our own book and putting it out separately under, the same kind of banner. And I've done several. Most of them have been really exciting. I've loved all of the books that I've done, but some of them maybe didn't necessarily fit in with the rest of the authors. Like I did one that came out in the fall of 2024, and I really, really loved the book, but I didn't quite fit in with the heat level of some of the other authors because I'm sort of like a 3 out of 5 compared to most of the other books that I read. So I've learned from that experience that I need to ask more questions and really get an idea of whether or not it's a good fit for me. Because I think if readers go into a shared world expecting high heat level and kink and things like that, and they don't get it, then they're less likely um, to read another shared world like that again.
Although I guess it would depend on the rules, right? The expectations for the readers. I think if you had a series of sweet romances set in a like world, then they would all fit together, right?
Yes.
Or if
Yeah.
everybody was at a 3, right, then they would
Sure.
all fit together. So there are lots of ways to create that expectation.
Yeah. So, but sometimes these projects end up with people just saying like, "Oh no, join in, you'll be great," and then they don't think about how whether or not everybody's the same kind of level. So, and I get that now. I learned my lesson, and so like
Right.
I said, I ask more questions.
Yeah. I'm like you too. I kind of break the rules, right? So the Broadway series, I didn't even realize was a series when I first was writing.
Mhm.
They were all standalone novels, and then a couple of the characters recurred. And now that I'm getting a little bit later in the series, it is. Although Busker is a standalone novel, but Chris Marlowe shows up. Do you know what I mean? Just for a
Yes.
couple of scenes, but Chris is there. So they're out, but they're all connected because they're New York City and they're a bit nostalgic and right. So that's really cool. But I have not stayed in a lane. One of those novels is a paranormal, right? It's a ghost story
Oh.
that series, right? And that psychic shows up in another book, but he talks to dead people. So right, I mean that's just what he does for a living. So, I've written a couple of steampunk novels that are part of a series. I have a couple of sci-fi queer novels that are part of their own series. None of them are really finished. None of the arcs are finished, right? I just write the next book when I want to. And I've started working on a new idea for a series of cozy mysteries. I've never written a cozy before, so I'm learning how to do that. And I'm like, wait, you got to finish something else, right? You got to finish the series before you can move on to the next thing. But
Speaking
I
of God,
like it, right?
like yeah, I
That
get to the
happens,
point
right?
where my editor, I was talking to her about one of the projects I'm working on is getting back to one of my series that is my best selling, but I haven't touched it in a couple years, and I was like, this is going to be the year I'm going to get back to it. And she's like, well, your readers don't really expect that you're going to have a sequel out soon. And I'm like, okay, but that's not good. So that's the problem, is that if you get people invested in your series and then you don't do it for a while, unless they're people that like to read across all of your books,
Right.
which, that's not necessarily the case. So, yeah,
But
so
your
I,
super
I
fans will
am,
do that. Yeah,
I'm
but the
going to
rest
be
of
I'm going to be a good person, and I'm going to get back to that series this year for sure.
I mean it. Yeah.
Yeah. No, you don't see.
Yeah. Yeah, I just got an email from somebody who read one of my steampunk novels, and she's like, um, "This isn't over. What happens next?" It's been a while. I'm like,
Yeah.
I know. I love Mildred too, but I just can't. You can't do it all. So
Yeah. Yeah, and you have to be, especially with the way the world is right now. A lot of us are talking with each other about how it can be very difficult to create when the world is on fire. And some people like myself, I channel it because that is the way for me to kind of work out things in my head that I'm dealing with in real life. But for some people, they really struggle. And so if you are trying to write something that's just not coming, it's always a good idea to shift gears a little bit and see if that breaks, helps you break through that block.
right. Well, I lead all these workshops. We do these prompt workshops, right? I'm doing it for the Henderson Library in Nevada, and I'm doing it for the Cheer Center here in Delaware, and I do my own version of it. And so people come together for an hour and they write for 30 minutes and they write to a prompt and then they share what they've written. And it's a really great process. The whole thing is really cool. And I've been doing it for about 11 or 12 years now. And it's wonderful. So, and I write with my students, like as I said earlier. So I'm always getting new inspiration, right? Sometimes it's the same character showing up, but sometimes the prompt takes you wherever the prompt goes, and you have 25 minutes or 30 minutes to write, and you got to write something.
Yeah.
Really cool ideas spark, and it's like, oh my gosh, this is a novel. This is the premise of a novel, or a character who deserves more time on the page, or whatever it is. So it's hard sometimes to stay in the lane because it's like, oh, now I want to go do that shiny object, right? I want to go do this thing, right?
Yep. I started off this year and I said, I'm going to finish book 4 in this series. I'm going to finish it before I leave for my event in February. And I got to a part, I kind of wrote myself into a corner and I was like, okay, I'm going to take a break and I'm going to write this short story that I have to have finished fairly quick. And that went really fast. And then I was like, well, I have this other novella that is almost finished. So if I finish that, and so yeah, so I've now completed a short story and a novella, and I went, well, maybe I should start this book next and come back to this one. The book will get done. I had a meeting with my coach and we brainstormed and worked everything out, and so it will happen, but now I'm kind of on the same path for this small town because our goal was we'd put out a short story in April, where the town is having their first Pride Festival. And then in August, we're releasing our books. And so mine is going to be a continuation. So I'm like, I'm already in that mindset. I'm just going to keep going with this and I'll have it done by March. And then I'll go back to the other book. But we'll see. We'll see. I'm also, I take care of my parents and we have a lot of stuff going on and related to my mother-in-law passing away last year. So like we have a lot of things going on. So I know that writing has to kind of fit in the middle of everything. So and that's kind of how I always did, even when I was teaching and I was raising small kids. Writing was the thing that was for me, and I did it on my lunch while the kids were in karate, while my daughter was riding horses. Like I fit it in, and I still do that. And it's honestly, the busier I am, the more productive I am with writing. So
a lot of people that way. I need a little bit of dedicated time. I have a window every day that's my writing time. I don't always write, but it is my writing time, and it's kind of sacred. Like I don't take phone calls or emails, or that block of time is for my creativity. I mean, sometimes I go into the other room and quilt or something. Do you know what I mean?
nice.
Yeah, but I write, and so, but I'm in good shape this year because the 2 novels that are coming out are finished. Right?
Good.
They're both with editors. So I have one coming out probably around March, and then I have another one coming out in September. So I have the year to write, and I have 2 more novels that are almost finished. I need a few more scenes at the end of 2 books.
Okay.
So I'm pretty good, but that's helping me be a little lazy, right? Because there's not enough pressure, right, to keep going.
Yeah, I definitely do better with a deadline, and I kind of cut off all my deadlines in the fall, and I was like, no, I'm just gonna, because we have a lot of stuff that I need to get done around the house and with my mother-in-law's estate, so I'm just not going to have myself any deadlines. And I was miserable. I was not happy, and so I started kind of pushing myself, and I put out an extra book last year that I hadn't planned on doing, but I wrote several short stories and kind of put them together. So yeah, so I'm finding that I feel better and I'm coping better with life while I'm writing so much. But yeah, I don't do well if I don't have deadlines.
Yeah, I know, I'm finding that now. But I have a lot to do, right? Because I have all these student novels to read and some other things. So, and I'm a terrible procrastinator. I'm just terrible. So, yeah, I need to be pushed a little bit to finish things.
Are you a mood reader also?
What do you mean by that?
So like do you pick a book, you read it, you finish it, you move on to the next one, or do you sit down to read and go, I really want to read this feeling right now, or I need to read this. I need to reread something, or I only want to read this. And then the
Yeah.
5 books that you were supposed to read before kind of get pushed aside and you read what you're in the mood for.
No, I'm in a bunch of book clubs. So,
Mhm.
so I'm in like 3 book clubs that meet monthly, 4 really, although the 4th one I haven't really given the time it should. So I read at least those 3 books every month because
Wow.
you have to show up for the conversation, right? I'm a big fan of that. So I read those, and then I read whatever else is on the list. Like I have a list of about 8 or 10 novels or some nonfiction too that I really want to read. Every once in a while, I'll pop something in because it interests me. Like I'll go to a conference or I'll attend a session online or something that
Mhm.
someone mentions a book and I'm like, oh, now I want to read that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I shove it in to the series. I also drive a lot. I listen to a lot of audiobooks.
Okay.
And you're talking about your mother-in-law. My mom passed away in December after a very long illness, right? So I'm not really illness, but a long low spiral.
Yeah.
And that was actually the inspiration for Shards. The character and the queer character in that is going through kind of dementia, Alzheimer's, which is what
Mhm.
my mom was going through. So that got channeled in
That's
the writing,
that's
right?
where my mom is, so I feel you.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's where a lot of us are, right? At this
Mhm.
stage with our aging parents. So we moved to Delaware, and my mother still lived in Savannah. So I was doing the drive once or twice a month down there. It's about 11 hours. I love
Yeah.
to Yeah, I love to drive. So I was listening to lots of books
Yeah.
because I had all that
The
time.
best thing. I do love a good road trip and an audiobook. So I used to listen to audiobooks because I'm a music first, right? But I have a few, and if it's a really good one, like I listen to a whole um Amy Nicole Walker has actually a series set in Savannah, and it's very, very fun. Detectives, Grumpy Sunshine opposites. And there was a trilogy, and then there were 3 books that were other people in the series, and then another trilogy, and then a couple more spin-offs, and then now she's written the last trilogy, and I started listening to that, and I was like, no, I can't get sucked back into this. I have to finish this. I run a book club, and I am terrible about getting the books read because if I'm not in the mood, then I will put it to the side. And I have a meeting next week, and cannot get into this book that we're reading, and I'm like angry every time I have to sit with it.
Right, right.
It's
Yeah,
fine.
I read lots of those, and rereading books. I reread some books too.
Yeah,
But the thing I love about those long road trips though that I was doing, and now I'm going to miss them because I'm not going to have to do them anymore,
right.
is that you can listen to an entire book in one sitting,
Yeah,
which we rarely get to do. You rarely
right.
read an entire book in one sitting, right? But when you're driving for 11 hours and the book is 7 or 8 hours long, if it's,
Yeah.
I just finished, not to give too big a shout out, but I just finished Never Flinch by Stephen King. And it was like
Oh,
11 hours, and I got to listen to the book pretty much straight through.
perfect.
I had to
Yeah.
take a break, Stephen King. That's why you have to take a break. But I took a break to listen to some music and eat some food. But yeah, it was amazing to listen to an entire novel. I love that. So yeah, that's how I.
I haven't had that opportunity for one that length, but my favorite thing to do for years, and I haven't done it in a long time, is go to bed at 8 o'clock on a Friday night with a book and stay awake until I finish. And I
Oh no.
used to do that a lot, especially when my kids were little, because by then they were in bed and I could just read, uninterrupted. And oh, yes. And
Oh, that's
sometimes I
wonderful.
would do it on work nights, and that was a really bad idea.
Yeah. Yeah, but I have my bachelor's degree, which I went back in my 30s to get. I dropped out to be a musician. I traveled all over the world as a
Oh,
musician.
yeah.
So, but I was in New York, so I went to Columbia, which was amazing, and I got my bachelor's in English literature from Columbia. So I read all the time. Like I just read fiction, and taking seminars like you read all of Jane Austen in one semester, right? Like that kind
Yeah.
of stuff. And so that sort of trained me. So I've done that with like John Irving. I read all of John Irving and I read all of Dickens. You know what I mean? I do that
Wow.
sometimes, right? I I read War and Peace just because everyone should, you know.
Is John Irving the Hotel New Hampshire?
Yeah, Hotel New Hampshire, World
I
According to
read
Gold.
that. I read that years and years ago. I really, really liked that book. It's
Yeah,
very, very bizarre.
very bizarre with the
Yeah,
bear. Yeah, really strange. So,
yeah.
so do you like do you reread stuff?
Yes, yes. In fact, I'm kind of hooked right now on an audiobook series that I have read the books multiple times. Every time a new one comes out, I'll go back to the beginning and reread. And now I'm re-listening because the new audio has just come out. But I do reread uh, books frequently because I need a certain feeling that I know I'm going to get from that book. And
Yeah.
because, especially during the pandemic, when I needed to be sure that I was going to be okay at the end, there was a lot of books that I put aside halfway through because it was starting to get too intense. And I was like, no, this is going to hurt my feelings, you know. In fact, one of them, which is so ridiculous, was Red, White, and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston. And I got to, you know, two-thirds of the book and a scene, and I was like, I can't take it if they break up right now. Like, I can't handle it. I put that book aside for almost a year. And then
Yeah.
I was like, you know, maybe I should finish it. And then I was like, that was nothing. Like, that wasn't,
But at the
I was
moment,
like,
it was
so,
something, and that's what matters, right? At the
yeah,
moment, it was something. So, yeah,
yeah.
the pandemic was hard for me. I didn't really write very much during the pandemic,
Mhm.
and I certainly didn't read very much because I had no attention span. You know,
Mhm.
I binge watched
Yes.
way too much stuff.
Yeah.
But that was how I got through, right? Me and the
Yeah.
dog. My husband is a registered nurse, and he was running a hospital, and he was in the middle of it. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And so I just, it was too much. It was an overwhelming time for me. I think for a lot of people, right? It was amazing to watch these people like doing baking bread and learning new things and learning to play guitar and like what? Where do you get this? You know, I
Yeah.
just I didn't have any of that. So
I had a pandemic garden that was actually pretty amazing, and it became this whole wildlife refuge because I had all these edible things and all these creatures were coming in and eating them while I was Zoom teaching and looking out the window going, "Oh my God." You know, my students are like, "What's happening?" I'm like, "There's a squirrel just ate the whole head off my sunflower." And then ran across, you know. Uh,
right.
but
Not the tomatoes. Don't eat the tomatoes.
yeah, and I was I don't watch a ton of TV, but during the pandemic, my kids are like, let's watch all of Criminal Minds. So we watched like 8 seasons of it, and then my eldest child went away to college, and she ended up watching the rest of it. And so we did have a few binge watches during the pandemic. But no, I did write a lot, but it was the first time that I had to ask for an extension with an editor. It was the first time I could not get a book done on time, and I felt awful because I'm an independent author. She's an independent, freelance editor. She's depending on that money to get by. She's not salaried. So that was my worst nightmare. And unfortunately, I had to do it, I think, twice during the pandemic. And so I'm much more careful now about not overbooking with her because I don't want to put someone in that situation again.
Yeah,
So.
yeah.
Well, I am loving this conversation, but I know Tonya said for us to not go too long. So, do you want to just share real quick what's coming next for you?
Right. So as I said, I have two books coming out this year. Busker, which is about Charlie, who's a guitar player in New York City. It comes out. I think it was originally going to be February, but it looks like it's going to be March now. And so that's book 5 in the Broadway series, but it's a standalone, so you could just read it. You don't have to read the whole series. And then I have Shards coming out in September, which is a piece of literary fiction about an older gay couple who who are navigating through memory loss and dementia. So it's written in short bursts, and it's a very cool piece. And I'm very excited that it's coming out. So I think it's going to do a lot of good for a lot of people, hopefully. Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
How about you? What do you have coming out this year? What's next?
So, April 15th is my short story that's called That's What Pride Is Made Of. All of our titles are taken from song titles, and so that's what Pride is made of. And then in June, I will have a story in the Love Is All anthology. I think this year is our 9th year. And so I wrote a very a departure for me, and I have sent it off to be looked at by a developmental editor because I'm like, I don't know if this works. And then in August, I will have my the full length book from this Foggy Basin shared world, which is called Dreams and Reptiles. And I will.
Great title. That's a great title.
I'm manifesting it. I will have book 4 in my gifted series will be out this year. And hopefully 1 or 2 other things, novellas and whatnot. And then of course, on February 14th, we will have 52 Love romance all year.
Very cool.
Well, yeah. And where can people find you if they want to know more about your books?
So you can find me on my website, kompes.com, or Gregory A. Kompes on Facebook, Gregory A. Kompes on Blue Sky, Gregory A. Kompes on Instagram, although I have to admit I don't post very often on Instagram. But I'm also a quilter, and I put up pictures of my quilts all the time too. And how about you? Where can people find you?
My mom was a quilter. That's been the hardest part about her dementia journey is like we shut the door on the sewing room and everything's in there, and we're still surrounded by her quilt, so it's still lovely. But yeah, that's an amazing. My website is rlmerrillauthor.com. Social media, RL Merrill Author on Facebook and Instagram. TikTok, RL Merrill Author 1342. And I'm really bizarre on TikTok because I'll either show pictures of my cats and dogs, or I'll just talk, and I have no rhyme or reason with my social media. So if that's what you're looking for, I'm not your person. But if you like genuinely what is happening, oh, literally my cat and dog just fought. Okay, and here's a picture. Like that's what you get.
Wonderful. Yeah, people love cats. So
yeah,
I'm raising a guiding eye dog right now. So there have been lots of pictures of Duncan up on my media.
Well, I'm gonna have to follow you because that'll be awesome.
Well, it's been lovely talking to you. I've had so much fun, and I hope we get to do it again in the future.
Yes, that would be great. Thank you.